Yeah, we were feeling pretty sleepy. And then we just took a quick little glimpse into the dock. And all I could think of is, these are lore topics that will also act as a coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's coming up next in Steve Danuser's Eternals? It is time to find out. We have updated dungeon journal descriptions, which may sound boring, but I mean, some of these are just a bit wild. Just a bit mad.
I feel really, really pissed off because at least one of them completely validates everything I was saying when I first thought about it. And I'm like, this is, but not even in a way of, I was right. More, no, I was right. I didn't want this to be true. I really didn't.
Well, everybody, the jailer Zovaal. For millennia, Zovaal has manipulated forces throughout the universe. Millennia, fucking timestamps. Just going to say, everybody who has given me shit for being on to Blizzard's whole fucking plan with Zovaal since, like, ages fucking ago during beta, who's fucking right? We were.
Go for it.
Now, it doesn't exactly mean that we think this is the best storyline in the universe, actually. No. I kind of preferred it when Arthas was a character. He was the boy, the Lich King was the Lich King, and that was it.
Yeah,
it was just the Lich King and Sargeras. That was it. That was the lore we liked, and then they fucking bootstrapped Zovaal by having him slurp up all of Arthas's juices.
Yeah, so
I don't like that phrase.
No. I was like,
my marbles.
Yeah, so I know you're seeing a decent bit of this fresh for the first time.
I am. I have purposely not. I got a glimpse of this and said, "Wait, Matt, stop.
Yeah,
let's save this for live because
you're deep into it." So for a lot of the PTR revelations that we got from data mining the new build is, I was explaining some of it to a friend of mine who was over yesterday. He's in our 14 FC. He's never played World of Warcraft, but he plays FF. And I was explaining to him all of the story, and he was just looking at me in disbelief the whole time, like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, so look, the sooner we get out of this incredible SDU movie, the better, because look, I get what you are trying to do, Steve and team. I get it, and on paper, I think it's cool. Experientially, I think it's not being potentially great. Now, somebody said it's supposed to be dramatic. Come on. No. So, no, that's just me saying manipulating cosmic forces throughout the universe. That's just confirmed what we've been saying for ages. And one of the things we had is people did not like the story direction to the point where they started giving us loads of shit doing our lore videos, because our lore videos have got to be based on what Blizzard is actually doing in the game. And so people be like, well, we don't like where the game's going, therefore the lore videos you're making are just all a load of wank. Well, no, this is now confirmed. So take that, all of... I mean, I don't know who's being got by this, but it's just, this continues to confirm what we have been saying, that it is that.
It's the demons in your head, like?
Yes, that's it. Fire my brain demons. So he's been manipulating forces throughout the universe to place him in a position of power. At this final step, the heroes of Azeroth rally to fight a cosmic being who has never known defeat.
Except for him becoming the jailer in the first place.
So Val, everyone, has never known defeat. Now, the whole point of Zoval's story was, in fact, he was defeated at the start.
Yes.
Yes, so actually the first thing he ended up knowing was defeat, insofar as how we know him.
Yeah. Also, how much, we do have to wonder, how much did he experience before his defeat? Was it even, was his defeat at his own hands? Did he even have any agency? Who knows?
Yeah, so there's that, and also we've have foiled a few of his schemes.
Yep.
Too, in this expansion as well. So, I mean, yeah, he is the jailer. He's also the jailed, as actually people have, pointed out in chat. So, funny description. I really hope that's just somebody not thinking too much about it being pushed onto the PTR. I hope this is not canon. Not canon, but I hope this isn't the way that they end up doing. This is a bit funky.
Yep.
Now, speaking of the big funky, this is the one that certainly set your soul ablaze, Matt. The prototype Pantheon. The first iteration of the Immortal Council was not put to use because their ideals were too extreme. With the enemy at the gate, Lihivium has little choice but to reactivate these dangerous prototypes. So, yeah, it's just a little bit like how in Interstellar, whenever, Matthew McConaughey and Tars are talking to each other, he's like, you know what, Tars, let's put your truthfulness to 90%, your comedy to 75. So, yeah, there you go. The first iteration of the Immortal Council were just too friggin' extreme.
So, for a start, of course, the current ones are already too extreme. That's where the problem came from. Maybe that's what they're trying to say, but they're just robots. They aren't characters. They haven't had experiences. They aren't born and live a tumultuous life and have experiences and, the philosophies are born of the strife they go through. They're just shit out of the factory and dumped there. Like, all right, there you go. Perfectly programmed. All the purpose, all the first one's purpose, everything. So Denathrius was printed, but his betrayal of the first ones was part of his personality then, you would imagine, because he's not experienced anything that would, be there. Or that would evoke that. It seems that way anyway. Like what I said 2 weeks ago about the Primus. This war-grizzled veteran who understands military tactics, is, the primordial Sun Tzu, knows how to fight, understands all this domination magic, makes this rune forging stuff. No, he's born that way. He just came out of the factory being this grizzled war veteran, as opposed to being someone who fought a load of war. I mean, he did, ostensibly, but that wasn't what made him the Primus. He's not an officer who became the commander.
Yeah, but this is the bit where I think it is possible to push back on that. Because we still like characters like Odin and Mimura. I mean, we don't. Odin's a dickhead, but he's a character we're glad to have around because he's an interesting dickhead. So Odin's a dickhead, but he was also forged, and Freya also forged. Your man with the hand, Tyr, also forged, and I suppose the thing then is, basically it all comes down to nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
And if they go too much in the direction of nature because they were programmed that way, I think that's basically what I want to have very clear here from Blizz. Because if they go too, basically, I think what's happened is Blizzard just latched onto the idea of the 3D printer and thought it was cool. Yeah. And basically boys and their toys, rule of cool. That's what it feels like to me. But if they play into that too much, then it can start to conjure up the feelings you're experiencing of, okay, so you're telling me this is a hollow mechanical world with not much soul. Yeah. It's very funny that Shadowlands has felt like the most soulless expansion they've done. So that's basically the thing. Nature versus nurture. Because if it is a situation where even people come out of the oven with different starting points.
Yeah.
And then of course it is what is in somebody's nature, and then how, so it's how somebody is in a very fundamental way versus how they're shaped by their environment. And I suppose maybe what's happened or what's happening here and why this is being felt a little bit more with this is the sort of forged characters that we know of have had a long enough history where we've heard about them and we've seen their trials and their tribulations. So the Titans, we all kind of know their story, all the shit they've been through, that they have actually tried to do plans and tried to, and all of that stuff. And then for the Titan Keepers, we know no matter what way Tyr came out of the oven, he clearly, even with all those characters, there's disagreements between them and all of that. And they had all their stuff happen. So I think from Blizzard's perspective, they're just going to go and say, well, with Eternals, it's exactly the same. But I'd then maybe sort of zoop in and say, that can be true on paper. But if we only see the Eternals act in a really pretty boring robotic way, which is kind of how they've acted thus far in this expansion, and then you dive super big into them being 3D printed, then it's not going to feel great to players. So a lot of it actually comes down to, and this is a big thing that's even came up playing Shadowbringers, often it's actually not the lore that's important.
No.
You can make nearly any set of lore and world building make sense if the story that it's told through is good. And I suppose people are just struggling with that. They haven't told the story enough to make people, have the lore feel kind of believable and rich.
Yeah, that's the point that I'm sort of really trying to get at here. It's that so much of this feels like pure nature, like all of the history between the Winter Queen and the Loon, that, the sisters, all that stuff, that is entirely implicit. There's a lot to learn from a Loon, but we just see a copy of the Winter Queen printed out, looking the same. There's no difference, outside of been unfinished. There's no difference of, we can see where the Winter Queen is scarred from battles or anything she's lost.
Yeah,
None of that is implied. It's all just, especially because of the way the Shadowlands is framed to us, where we come to this machine that up until extremely recently...
Yeah, the machinery of death is even how they positioned it at the very start.
Yeah, so obviously that's all fairly thematic and stuff like that, but what it means for these characters that they've tried to push in us so hard is just that they don't exist. They were in this like stasis bubble, then they come out. What's up?
They've just made the entire World of Warcraft universe into Oddworld.
Yeah, that's what they've done.
We're all just food for the machine.
Yeah, that's clearly what they're kind of trying to get into. That's exactly what it is. There's no uniqueness to them that isn't, if it's implied, it is implied so loosely that they have not thought to put it in whatsoever. So I don't think of any of those 3D printed gods as characters anymore. I would if they changed their minds fairly quickly when we landed. Like, obviously, one of the things is Carestia has now changed based on what the Kyrians experienced. Not that manifests in any way that's okay or seems to actually matter.
Or the most the player base have seen.
Yeah, it's just, okay, well, here, I guess Carestia has changed. So if the idea they're going for is that's fair enough, but they haven't done the job of showing that our influence can change that heavily enough, or if it gets the machinery. Yeah. It just feels like, oh yeah, well, all of these characters have no history that we're aware of.
It's a sort of thing, right? Let's just say, I end up in a room with Steve and we're talking about the lore. And I feel like I can really engage with, I think, the deeper themes and things that maybe he's trying to go for here. Where, there is a thing of nature versus nurture. I mean, I really like the science fiction genre. Mm-hmm. A lot of things involving AI, right? And, AI characters. There's been so many great AI characters in media, and there's always that question of how much is this just following its programming, or can the programming self-adapt? And do you get to this situation with, with a character where, a human plops out, spends 20 or whatever years, and to a degree their personality crystallizes. Does an AI get to the same place via slightly different means, but then as a individual operator, a rational whatever they are, can they then move and change and be whoever they are as an AI? There you go. Now it's Mass Effect. I'm talking about organics versus synths. But like all of that to me is really fascinating lore. And I actually think there's probably a decent degree of that Steve really wants to engage with in all of this.
Yeah.
But what I'd then say is that really would have worked if Shadowlands had an A plot that I basically played like a campaign, like I just did in Shadowbringers. Because when I go through things, the campaign that I got was solving local issues and world building for 4 different factions, which is, by the way, like usually all, cool and good.
Yep.
But
it then ended.
The Covenant campaigns were of mixed quality. I didn't spend enough time with the key characters driving forward the A plot, and that basically just means that none of them really feel like characters. And then as to what you said, I mean, yeah, if we get to see the original the original Primus, and he looks like the Primus, but not exactly like the Primus. His beard's a bit different. His face is a bit different. He doesn't have a few scars. And we can tell that, even take Terminator. Mm-hmm. All these 3D printed Arnolds coming out. But people do end up engaging with the Terminator as if he's a character.
Yeah.
Because, it is his programming, but
he has agency enough.
But then it's like, this is his programming, but you're always just kind of thinking there about the Terminator, okay, well, how much is Arnold just following his programming versus, Is he actually developing a little thing? What does his AI let him do? All those interesting questions. And those are only things that can be played around with, and you can maybe come to more conclusions about it when you spend enough time with that character such that you actually know the character, and haven't really done that with any of their Pantheon members, which then means if the only information that you have is they're a bunch of stubborn pricks that you don't spend that much time with who just seem to be annoying and not really understand what's going on and be upholding something that seems a bit sketch, and then we find out they just come from the Forge. Given the lack of emotional experience that the player has got with those characters, you're going to feel a certain way. So it's just a fundamental failure of storytelling.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that much time, you don't have the time to do this right, take all of this, put it in a book on Amazon. Then take take Folk and Fairy Tales, put that in the game.
Yeah, that's a better move.
And then delete the Amazon listing for the other.
Of course, yeah.
Because basically all of the stuff feels so much more rich and characterful when it is the mythos of the peoples we know. And the way to really do this is like, see this shit? We should be doing this with Bran Bronzebeard. We should be discovering it in a very boots in the ground way with characters that we know who are tied to it. In the same way, take the Crystal Tower MSQ and how you learn about the Allegan tech and all of that. That's the thing with FF14. It's got some real wacky shit.
Really does.
Really wacky shit.
Gets very out there and it's going to get weirder.
I mean, Shadowbringers does stuff that if people were to say that the next World of Warcraft expansion was what Shadowbringers fundamentally is, do you think it's too much to say the basic premise of Shadowbringers in the stream?
Honestly, I would say that's a little bit too much.
I do feel like that.
Yeah, because a lot of the experience is not knowing what it is going in. I mean, people had ideas and stuff, but a lot of it was just, this is cool.
Well, okay, so in a way people looked at Warlords of Draenor and they thought, oh, what? Time Travel Orc expansion? Weird.
Yeah.
Let's just say Shadowbringers actually is even more far out there than that. But I'm now in a state where if the FF14 people with the FF quality writing and all of that, if they were to tell me that the next WoW expansion was AU Azeroth in the Warlords of Draenor timeline, I'd be like, let's fucking go!
Yeah, you trust them to do it properly?
Because it's... So, Warlords of Draenor could have been a fantastic concept. Just to that comment, I don't mean that as a dig on you at all, by the way. It could have been if it was maybe executed a bit better and it wasn't cut short. And I guess that's the thing. If the parts of the premise of Shadowbringers were pitched to us as the next WoW expansion, I think a lot of people would almost reject it out of hand.
Rightly so.
Because, so that's basically a lot of what I'm saying here. It's like the actual storytelling, how you do it in game. That's really what matters. That's really what matters. And perhaps that is why there are some struggles right now. Basically, all this lore mostly feels bad to people. You go to the Warcraft lore subreddit. I mean, it still is a great place. It always has been a great place. I've really, I enjoy it. I love seeing people geek out about the lore.
Same.
I love reading people's theories. You go there now, go to a top post, and it's just everyone being like, please let the jailer win and undo the whole thing, please.
Yeah.
And look, I guess that's the situation. So this lore, if it was backed up with storytelling, I truly believe everyone, this lore, including these 3D printed gods, could have been fantastic.
It just needs to be executed on with some sort of idea for a story that's well paced and well actually gives you what you need to see to make the themes work, as opposed to just like, I think if you have to play benefit of the doubt with how the story's written and the themes are going for, and go, okay, well, based on how you've written other stories and then how this is generally done in storytelling, I can extrapolate themes, because rather than experiencing the story, I'm almost feels like, this was something I think I said in the speculation video for Endwalker, but we're basically writing World of Warcraft alongside them. And when we speculate and think about themes, as opposed to taking, filling in small gaps. We're filling in these massive, gigantic gaps of, okay, well, I guess if the theme is nature versus nurture, then you can see, that is mentioned as a concept maybe once or twice. And then you kind of go, well, maybe it's tied into the purpose, that maybe the purpose is, but then that's very, very religious. So, are you saying religion and machine like behavior or programming are similar enough? But that's never engaged with. That's just us filling in the gaps.
Like, the purpose, nature, nurture, woo! Yeah. And then never actually engage with any of those properly.
Yeah, then the jailer for 3 or 2 patches.
Yeah. So that's the thing, everyone. I know that there is a lot of anger at the lore, and I actually do share a lot of that. My fundamental belief is that if the story was told well, just about all of this lore would work pretty well. Yeah. You need to make some changes, such as Sylvanas making a bit more sense, etc. But that, to me, all falls in storytelling. You could take all of the key beats of this and have it work. I guess I think about, say, here's a good example. Game of Thrones. Now, I don't want to come off as a major snob here. It's kind of inevitable. A little bit of that will happen.
Big snob.
My personal belief is that Game of Thrones basically went to shit after like season 4. And season 8 is just the culmination of old D&D being fucking hopeless.
Yeah.
Look, Game of Thrones season 6 and 7, I thought that those were pretty weak, to be honest. Now, there's the likes of the Hard Home episode that are some of the best TV I've seen. Incredible. So there's absolutely good bits. But the further you step away from those initial few books, the more messy it gets. Now, you have this situation, right? I think, where in Thrones, let's just say, because I know that the showrunners did deviate from George Martin's outline of how the ending was going to be. And there's actually recent stories have came out that seem to indicate George wasn't best pleased with the whole thing. I mean, seeing your baby be fucking murdered like Game of Thrones Season 8, which, hey, by the way, Steve, I get it. You can enjoy Game of Thrones Season 8 if you want. That tweet certainly did a lot of damage to your rep, and definitely please try to engage with and work out why people bring that up about you fairly regularly. I don't say that as a dig. I say that as, Game of Thrones Season 8. Look, to be honest, if I'd let's just say engage in some of the devil's lettuce, it was just a bit high, I could be like, bruh, fucking Dothraki, yo! And, just see the spectacle. Yeah. Because, you cannot knock them for the spectacle in Game of Thrones Season 8. I mean, the battle at Winter, I was about to say Winterhelm.
Wintergrasp. No.
Where's Winterhelm from?
I don't know.
Winterfell. I've got brain damage from the last while. I mean, that battle was so visually cool, even though it made no sense in any But if I was just like high as balls, right? Just there, high as balls, big thing of Doritos, just like, this is very cool. Then sure, maybe it would all come off as great. But then it's like, as soon as you actually try to engage your head and think about these characters, think about what they did with Littlefinger. I mean, please. So I would just say engage with that because, and this is the point that I've meandered my way to here. This is where I've meandered my way to. Most of that Game of Thrones stuff, if the storytelling had have remained good, most of the key plot beats, such as Dany losing her marbles and doing the big burn, those things all basically could have worked. The story just would have had to have been told. And, people make, it's the little meme of, Game of Thrones, season 1, and then season 8's all like fucking cramped into the margins of the side of the book, right? Yeah. And that's the thing. Because it was so squeezed into the margins, none of the core plot beats they had actually worked because they did not have enough reinforcement. The characters just didn't work. In order to make the core plot beats move fast enough, they had to have characters make stupid decisions. They had to have, Dany just kind of forgot. All of those stupid things that they get memed on, right? If you had to stretch that story out another 2 seasons, I'm sure it could have been great. And that is the lesson that needs to be applied to World of Warcraft. And look, if you're in a position where you really like Game of Thrones Season 8, you're now working in World of Warcraft, you're getting a lot of similar criticisms to Game of Thrones Season 8, the thing to do is to actually have a think about why you thought your lore is cool and why you thought Game of Thrones Season 8 is cool. Actually engage in the cool parts of both of those things, and then try to work out why it's not like that for a lot of other people. And I think in doing that, you can have a really good, productive, constructive, discussion that actually gets you to a really good place.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think needs to happen internally at Blizzard. I think they actually have plenty of interesting enough grand ideas, but I think the problem they have is that it's so fucking compressed, it's so squeezed, that to move their plot fast enough, characters don't really act sensibly all the time. They just have to exposit shit at us, and it's all just a big old mess, which means that any of their cool ideas are squandered, and what Blizzard is now running into is a situation where, like with Game of Thrones Season 8, it doesn't matter if you use all the cinematic technique in the universe, if you have the highest production values, the coolest cinematics, what's fundamentally going to happen is the basic building blocks aren't there. There's no amount of very visually striking battle scene that's going to save you. Yeah. And that's, I think, where they've wandered into here.
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally, to me, it's a little bit of a misdiagnosis problem where it's like, well, what do you not like? And then players are going to, the general consensus is going to be about the idea because that's just a general misdiagnosis of things. And you can see how that happens when it comes to trying to get signal out of the noise. The strongest signal is likely going to be based on the thing that you can clearly attack, which is the idea, but you can't very clearly attack specific points of execution.
Yeah.
It's a kind of thing where, if someone comes into your restaurant and it's just a patron, they're not going to eat the food and be like, oh yeah, I understand the cooking process of this dish. I know where you've gone wrong. You might want to leave, take that fish out a couple minutes earlier, leave it, last couple seconds, warm, cook itself through by being warm. Then you want to apply your garnish at this point, bring it out to us. They're going to go, it's bad.
Yeah, fish not good.
Guess I don't like fish. I mean, actually, I literally had this conversation with, not much of a conversation, but I basically said it to Nikki earlier today. Time dilation is weird. Anyway, he was talking about Brussels sprout and roast bacon soup. Brussels sprout and bacon soup. I was like, I know that's great. I know that sounds good, but fuck, I hate Brussels sprouts. And then he just goes, oh, well, you've only had Brussels sprouts that are, parboiled.
On the good Northern Irish tradition.
Yeah.
Utterly bloated, destroyed.
Bloated. As opposed to nicely seasoned and roasted. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not that I don't like Brussels sprouts. It's that I don't like the Brussels sprouts I've had because they've been prepared wrong. But I'm just going, well, Brussels sprouts are fucking stinking. Which, you can see how then on a big basis of a fan base, I go, oh, well, they don't like the ideas. They don't like the Shadowlands, which is not necessarily true. We could have liked the Shadowlands, but it's just a series of misdiagnoses.
Yeah, like, hey, I don't like fish. Guess what happened whenever you, me, and Dickie decided to go to a Michelin star restaurant?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds a lot more fancy than it is, because I know sometimes you hear that in American, people are like, oh my God, a 400 quid plate.
No.
No, it is for the 6-course tasting menu, £65, which certainly is expensive.
Less than a PS5 game these days.
Oh, wow, yeah. But that was a case where it's like, wow, this is what a fish tastes like when it's cooked by a fucking master chef. Well, shit, this is delicious. Maybe I can like fish.
Yeah.
And then the next time I have fish, it's an overcooked salmon fillet. I'm like, oh, what's going on?
Yep. That's exactly the point.
And this is all ties perfectly into the prototype pantheon.
Yeah, absolutely.
We run the tightest live stream on Earth. To move on, we've got the Lords of Dread.
Fucking hell. Yeah, absolutely. Move on.
The Dreadlords have worked for eons to bring Zovaal's plans to completion. There you go. As I was saying.
Hard confirm, like.
Big Sarg.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this stuff has been in the game since beta. The video we did in it, I'm proud of.
Yep, absolutely.
I wish we got to use Katie's voice acting, though. We need to get Katie to voice act in something. They do a great voice. But that was the one we did the voice acting for. We had so much fun. And, it's... I think it's actually a pretty cool set of lore. Pretty cool stuff. It's just, the storyline. So yeah, they've worked for aeons to bring Zovaal's plans to completion. This is basically just how about the Dreadlords are behind Sargeras' fall because they nudged him in the right direction. They're obviously behind the Lich King and all of that. There's maybe, Lothraxian, what's going to go on there? But now on the brink of their master's victory, they need only complete one final task to ensure none are left to resist the new order.
Kill us.
Kill us.
They're going to fail. I mean, they're going to succeed a number of times and then fail.
And then we have Duzig, the Fallen Oracle.
Dow Shagny.
Dow Shagny, that's it.
Probably Dusan or something. That's it.
Oh, I love Northern Ireland. Controlled by Zovaal, the Fallen Oracle leads the Mossworn in a battle to gain control of the Forge of Afterlives. With its power, the jailer will be able to create an eternity of torment.
So that's what he wants. We found out through the Dungeon Journal what he wants to remake.
We finally found out what the Chuckler wants.
We know what the sigils are for now.
To create an eternity of... Are you telling me that Angry Nipple Man in Hell just wanted to make a bigger hell? Sylvanas, I thought you were going to set us free. I thought that was the point.
Yeah, so we now...
Where does this fucking roller coaster go?
Yeah, so... How do I put this? Rule number 1 in how to establish a sympathetic villain that people care for. Make them sympathetic. Which means their motives have to be in some capacity understandable.
Emmet Selk.
So, one of the things that... Because many a time ago... Many a moon ago, there are people just talking about franchise and stuff online, and there's usually like the idea of what a good villain is, and Malygos is placed as Elder God tier in World of Warcraft because Elder God tier of a villain is the villain who is their motives are completely understandable, and the player would make the same decision in their place essentially, and obviously Malygos was like, well, I need to stop magic because magic's causing all these problems, and you go. Yeah, but your means are a bit off. That's basically it. It's like, we completely agree with your motive, but you're mental. And that's kind of the thing. And the exact opposite is villains who are who lust for power or for chaos for their own sake, or for the sake of it. And now the jailer seems to be mostly down there at just, why does he want to torment? I guess torment. There's no sympathy whatsoever in what he wants. There's
no
an
way. Interesting thing here. I can talk about this in broad strokes, and I don't think it's spoilers. Right now it feels like Fandaniel and Xenos are just kind of like the nihilism bros, who just like, hey, burn it all, have a good fight, end the world, whatever. Yeah. But we only found out about that at the very end of Shadowbringers, and there's now going to be a full expansion that will probably fully delve into these characters. So imagine if we had a looming spookathon of the literal big Zovaal jailer. Imagine if basically most of what we know about Zovaal right now, we actually knew at the end of Battle for Azeroth. Yeah. And then this expansion actually fully was fleshing out the jailer as a character. A good example is old Amic Selk. Again, we think what we think about him at the end of Stormblood, and then he is fleshed out in the Shadowbringers expansion in a way where you understand, oh, actually, he does have a point. He does have emotions. He is a well-rounded character. Oh! Yeah. And those are both cases where, that villain is introduced at the end of the prior expansion, and then the proper expansion for that villain really does flesh them out.
Yeah, because we spend literally many hours with them, not specifically, with them walking alongside us, but, we see a lot of what they're doing, how they got to that point, etc., etc.
Yeah, and to the people in chat just about Fandaniel, I'm not sold on him either yet, but based on how Emmett was shown only at the end of Stormblood, imagine if you stopped there and, waited a few months.
Yeah.
He could have seemed like a one-note character, so I'm very much hoping that Fandaniel does, grow a little bit through this expansion, and based on Shadowbringers, I would imagine so.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing where everyone's around, oh yeah, you don't like them yet, but that's intentional, as opposed to the jailer, where it's like, well, we have been told explicitly that he's supposed to be sympathetic, but especially when you read into, was it the end of 9.1, the way the Primus talks about him, I think, it seems a bit too aggro to me, and I was like, that's kind of interesting, where it's like, there's a lot of tones of, oh, well, we kind of put him in this spot because he did the bad thing. But then Prime is like, nah, just fuck, kill him. Get rid of him. Get rid of him, fuck. But, like, there's so much opportunity for weaving through what was wrong with the current system, and then us maybe coming to the conclusion, some part through Shadowlands, okay, maybe there's a way we can amicably solve this because everyone's in the right. What's wrong with the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of not ultimately ally with him, but we understand him more and go, right, well, I understand you're too far beyond the pale. We need to sort you out.
Yeah.
We cannot resolve this amicably, so we have to fight. No, it's just me big bad nipple man. You've been told I'm sympathetic, but I do not provide any sympathy to anyone else. I am literally one note. Serve. I want to make torment reality. Like, what?
Do you know what? This is, now I've not seen an M. Night Shyamalan movie in a long time. One of the things about, twist movies. There are some twist movies that are incredibly satisfying at the end because the journey up until that point is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the twist reframes certain things in a way that is deeply satisfying and in line with the themes of the piece. You can then have the worst of a twist movie where the twist is just a cheap bing bing wahoo at the end. Yeah. And in order to achieve the twist, they have sacrificed the journey up until that point. And often that happens, I think anyway, whenever, it's all very cool in the creator's head because they see it as its whole. They don't see it as somebody experiencing the story from start to end. Yeah. And if you're telling a story and you're always saying, but it's not over yet, and there's people involved with WoW have, tweeted to the effect of, oh, Shadowlands ain't over yet. There's more story to come. That's not an excuse for the story thus far being very unsatisfying.
Oh, yeah.
People are talking about Red Notice.
Yep, I see. I also watched Red Notice. That is a very bad example of a twist. That said, I have to rewatch it to see if it's maybe a little bit better placed.
I can't look at Ryan Reynolds.
Fair enough.
I don't know why. I know everyone completely seems to love the man, but I don't know. To me, he feels like a 3D printed comedic lead, and I can't understand it.
I definitely comes across that way, and I can understand that. Red Notice is very, very okay second Monitor movie. Just because just because Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne Johnson do a great job as actors. So you basically just kind of get, while you're doing something else, you kind of get just third party vibes, which is pretty nice. But that has a pretty big twist, and I don't think anyone really cares about spoilers or anything, but it's just I would love to watch it back and see if there's anything interesting, but I don't trust it to have because it was just it looked like a cheap shitpost of a movie in a way. They did definitely put care and attention into it in a lot of ways, but it was like, why does this exist? But that's a very, very good a very, very good comparison. Yeah. Where it's just, here's the twist. Does it make you feel good? No. Does it make you feel bad? Does it make you just leave? Are you just left scratching your head going, oh, I understand why these things are missing from the movie because you were setting up this twist. Ugh.
Yeah. To be fair to Ryan Reynolds, it actually could just be that I generally don't like too much of the quippy one-liner based dialogue that seems to rule a whole bunch of movies these days. So it could totally be a case where it's like, you put Adam Sandler at Uncut Gems and so you're like, oh yeah, fuck, I forgot Adam Sandler can be a brilliant actor whenever he activates it. Could totally be a situation like that. To be fair to the man. I don't want to be unfair to the man.
The movie's definitely not great, but he does, they do go into a underground Nazi bunker and Ryan Reynolds whistles the Indiana Jones themes when he's coming down the stairs. So it is actually a pretty funny movie, but...
And I clap!
That's exactly what it is, but yeah.
We need a form of convocation and start just fucking channeling Rich Evans. Do you imagine becoming so powerful you could manifest Rich Evans?
Yeah, absolutely.
So powerful. So anyway, that's these three. Interesting. And as I said, it's the sort of thing where lore is one thing, how it feels to players is how you tell it, and that's, we'll just have to see. Mm-hmm. Now then, there's also this that people have been clowning on a bit.
It's funny, like.
What I would say, though, and this was actually, I believe, pointed out, was it Samaya who data mined it? I forget. Because like it ends up, he does that and yeah, he just falls backwards. It looks lame. But there's actually a lot of cases where the NPC just has like a generic death animation.
Yeah.
But what actually happens is they reach 0% and then the cinematic or something plays. Yeah. So I wouldn't read too much into this. Now that said, we do have.
Interesting.
These are the sorts of things that, by the way, are going to look very goofy in a model viewer. But, in the actual
Like
fight, once it's moving, once it's all going on, could probably, look pretty reasonable. I kind of like the mace just screaming fire.
I will say I do not like the fact the chain comes out of the mace. Mostly because that removes all of the really cool animations you get from someone actually using a whip or a chain. Because, you have to use your counter movements with your arm to like snap it back and stuff. But if it's controlled by the mace, then the jailer just has to hold it up and it does everything itself. Yeah. So, cool idea. Bit of a shame that, but...